do that. But I was converted in the Church of the Nazarene. I was fascinated by the word Nazarene. I'd never heard it before, and I'd only been going to the church some 6 weeks, and I heard the gospel, and I responded to the gospel. And it was a real blessing to me that God would accept me into his life. And so many years later, I look back on a life that has been full. Sometimes full of tears, sometimes of laughter. But it's been a full life. And I'm really grateful to God for it. But I want to speak this morning in the theme, a very snatched 2-minute phone call with Jenny while she was trying to finish her Christmas shopping in Morrison's, put this service together, and remarkably it fits perfectly, because I want to speak about Joseph. I like Joseph. But first of all, I wonder, can you think of anybody in the New Testament that would be comfortable in our church service? Most of them wouldn't even recognize it. They wouldn't recognize sitting in rows. They wouldn't recognize having one person either lead them in worship or lead the discussion or the Bible study. They wouldn't recognize that at all. Because when they came together, each one of them brought something to the meeting. A little bit like our Christmas dinner. Somebody decided that we needed really to taste red cabbage, and I made far too much. I only used 1 cabbage, 1 onion, and 2 apples, and about 30 chestnuts. And I think we're still eating it, you know. But everybody in the early church would have brought something to the meeting. And people would speak up, and it would be weighed, and there'd be real camaraderie. Actually, they'd not recognize coming in the morning. You see, most of the early church were slaves, or they were working people, and they had to work till the end of the day in order to worship God. They certainly wouldn't have worshipped Christmas on the 25th of December, but that's another tale, and my family do not want to hear it again. But if you're interested, I'll tell you when he was really born, okay? And I thought there's not many people would recognize our service. They wouldn't be comfortable. But then I thought the other way around. I wouldn't be very comfortable with many of the New Testament saints coming into my church. I mean, they were a motley crew. There was Mary. She was so heavenly minded, she was hardly any earthly use. All she could do was sit at the feet of Jesus and listen. Well, you know, call me a man, but I think there is a place for women. And unfortunately, Martha found it. And she was so earthbound, she couldn't get above that and recognize the person and the gift that was in her house. And then there was Lazarus. Do you know Lazarus? Everywhere he went after his resurrection, he took the limelight. Jesus was there at the dinner. He was a guest of honor. And people crowded in to see Lazarus. That's who they wanted to see. They were. I wouldn't want Paul in my church either. He was always ready to pick a fight. Even with the leadership, he picked a fight with Peter. Then there was people like Demas, who couldn't get his head together. Demas, because of the love of this present world, had left Paul. And Paul made sure everybody knew about it. So I'm not sure that I'd be very happy with many of the New Testament saints in my church either. But the one I'd be least happy with is Joseph. You see, Joseph is a bit of a loose cannon. Just a quick quiz. How many dreams did Joseph have where God revealed something to him? Okay, who thinks 2? Who thinks 3? Who thinks 4? Who thinks 5? He had 4. And each time he had this dream, an angel appeared to him and told him something. He's in the situation where the marriage contract has been drawn up. The bride price has been paid. And Mary presents him with this awful news. Joseph, I'm having a baby. What's Joseph going to do? He could put her away quietly. Actually, the law required that she be stoned. But Joseph, the heart wants what the heart wants, doesn't it? And he looked at Mary and he thought, she's too good for that. And so he had a dream, and an angel appeared to him and said, don't be afraid to take Mary as your wife, because that which is born in her is of God. Now, would you like that in your church meeting? Every time you had a decision that was difficult, somebody said, I had a dream last night and God told me. We're not going to be very comfortable with it, are we? And then the wise men come. And they bring, I don't think there was 3, I don't even think there was 4. Personally, I think there was a whole army of them. Because they troubled all Israel. I can't see 3 people troubling all of Israel. I think there was a lot of them. And they brought gifts, and amongst these gifts, they amounted to gold, frankincense, and myrrh, according to what we saw on last Sunday. One of the children was being asked about the gifts, and he said, murder. Jesus brought murder. Gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And they brought their gifts, and what is a baby going to do with gold, frankincense, and myrrh? Nothing at all. That's a gift that's going to be needed to preserve this child's life. You see, they are being warned in a dream, bless them, not to go back to Herod, because Herod has got other designs on the life of baby Jesus. So they go back by a different route. And then Joseph, realizing the danger that they're in, what will happen if Herod comes looking? Conveniently has another dream, and conveniently has another angel who warns him to go to Egypt, which was fortunate. If he'd have been a Bible student, he would have been able to read that the child would have to come out of Egypt, but he wasn't. He probably didn't learn his Bible, his Torah, quite as well as he should have. I don't know how long they spent in Egypt, but I know this. It would have been difficult for Joseph to make a living. Egypt would have had all the carpenters and builders they needed. They didn't want a refugee coming in and taking the local jobs. Why does that sound familiar? It does, doesn't it? And so they dip into the gold in order to pay their way whilst they're sojourning in Egypt. And then Herod dies, which is a blessing. The only problem is his son was twice as bad as he was. And Joseph has another dream. And in this dream he's told that Herod is dead, so he can go back to Israel. Hooray, I can take up my life again. I can begin again. I can establish a business. I can look out for my family. And as he nears Israel, he realizes that actually he's walking into danger. And so he has another dream. Now, I do not doubt the truth of these stories at all. But how difficult would it be in church meetings if every decision you wanted to make, somebody had a dream about? And the first thing I want to say to you this morning is this. Have you dusted off your dreams? You see, we go through life and life becomes complicated. It was hard enough when you were a teenager and you were trying to establish who you were. It was hard enough when you got married and you were trying to forge a relationship, a 1 out of 2. And before you'd even got that fixed, 3 and 4 came along, and sometimes more. And your dreams are kind of put on the back burner. As a 15-year-old, I dreamed that one day I would serve God full-time. And the number of people that came alongside to tell me how ludicrous that idea was disheartening. But you have to take your dreams down. You've got to dare to dream again. And don't waste your dreams on temporal things, on things that will go out of fashion. Will just use up your energy without giving you anything in return, which will make you a year older and not a penny richer. What's your dream? You see, out of that dream, or those dreams, Joseph forged a new beginning. And he said, from today. And I don't know what you've written on those pieces of paper. I know what I wrote on mine. And I certainly aren't going to tell you. But maybe we've let our Bible study slip. Our church attendance waver. Maybe we've failed to tell those nearest to us of the great faith and hope that we have in Jesus Christ. Maybe it's something like that. Maybe we haven't given our tithe, or we've given our tithe but we haven't given our offering, or we haven't looked after the poor as we should. I don't know what's on those things. But in 2 days' time, the clock will tick over to 2020. And you've got chance to renew the way you go. You've got chance to make a difference. I don't make New Year's resolutions because I can't keep them. But maybe if I present them to God and say, God, this year I want to talk to 10 people about the reason for the hope that is in me. Maybe if I did that, maybe, Lord, I'd like to follow the reading plan, even though it's sometimes very complicated, because I want to get through the Bible. I remember as a young Christian, I could never get past Leviticus. I couldn't see what point Leviticus had in my current life. The New Testament was easy, except Revelation. oddly enough, because Revelation has become the most precious book to me at the moment. It's like reading my newspaper, reading Revelation, and seeing what God has planned, and then looking up and seeing what is being worked out in our generation. New beginnings. But then there's new possibilities as well. Is it possible that this year God is going to ask you to do something quite remarkable, quite out there, quite left field? Is it possible that this year, this coming year, the skies might break open and the Son of God descend in the same way that he ascended? And the kingdoms of this world will become the kingdoms of our God and of his Christ. Is it possible? You see, it's a new beginning, but there's new possibilities. There's new reasons to hope that Jesus will come again. Now, I said I wasn't going to keep you long, and I'm not going to keep you long. I'm just going to commend those few words to you, but come back to the hope. You see, Messianic Jews throughout Israel have got one hope this Christmas, and this song speaks of it. Now,